This episode is sponsored by Informed Water Choices, providing utilities with research to make better water infrastructure decisions.
In carbon capture, it allows existing industries like oil and gas and other different sectors to use their current infrastructure and processes and just cut emissions by adding a carbon capture section. In the US and Canada, it's super helpful that tax credits are available, and we think that's going to help growth in the near term.
Hello and welcome to the Pumps and Systems podcast. I am your host, Tom Baer, a managing editor at Pumps and Systems magazine. Today we're speaking with Jessi Munsey from John Crane, who's going to tell us all about carbon capture and hydrogen technologies. So without any further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Pumps and Systems podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So today we're going to be talking about carbon capture and hydrogen technologies. But before we get into that, would you mind introducing yourself? So tell us a little about who you are, what you do, anything you would like our listeners and viewers to know.
I think the first thing you should know is I'm a first-time podcast attendee. I'm an avid listener and watcher, but first time to join, so I'm thrilled to be here. I work for John Crane as a business development manager in the energy transition. Coincidentally, I started my career 20 years ago also at John Crane, working on dry gas seal systems for compressor seals. And in between there, I was able to get some operational experience at BP, supporting an offshore platform, doing rotating equipment, and then a couple of other mechanical seal manufacturers doing outside technical sales. Thrilled to be here.
Great. Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. Okay. So then let's move on to our main topic. And let's start with, as we often do, the absolute basics. So what exactly is carbon capture?
Carbon capture is the process of actually capturing carbon dioxide. And there's different things you can do with it once you capture it. The main gist is to keep it out of the environment because it's a greenhouse gas. So the whole industry is called CCUS. So it's carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So the U is utilization, meaning you can do a lot of things with it once you capture it. And then sometimes people just decide to store it in old oil wells or actually use it for enhanced oil recovery.
Why are carbon capture and hydrogen gaining so much traction right now in North America? And what are some of the key forces that are driving that momentum right now?
So, a bit of a caveat. While some days I do feel like a market analyst, I certainly am not. But we believe that carbon capture and hydrogen are gaining momentum because the economics and the policy and technology are finally starting to align. In carbon capture, it allows existing industries like oil and gas and other different sectors to use their current infrastructure and processes and just cut emissions by adding a carbon capture section. In the US and Canada, it's super helpful that tax credits are available, and we think that's going to help growth in the near term. And with hydrogen, since it's a zero emission fuel, it's getting a lot of attention and investment on the production and transportation side. We hope that it makes hydrogen more of a viable choice for different industries for long-term sustainability. And I guess to summarize that, carbon capture, we feel, is a much less disruptive path to lowering emissions, while hydrogen is a bolder step.
Okay, that makes sense. So how developed are the carbon capture and hydrogen industries and technology in North America today from your perspective?
I believe that they're advancing, but at very different speeds, and they're both currently at different maturity levels. Point source carbon capture, which is capturing it right where it's emitted, is very well established. There's over 50 operational sites in the US and Canada. And tax credits have helped a lot to make these projects more financially viable and keep building this momentum. Direct air capture and utilization is a little bit still emerging. We think there's a lot of potential, but it's still early days. Permitting is a hurdle in the US and Canada. Just takes a long time to get a permit for anything. And so that gives challenges to the transportation sector, depending on where the pipelines are, how many states or, counties they have to progress. And then on hydrogen, It's fairly new. There's a lot of high production costs and limited infrastructure right now. Hopefully, this is addressed with so many feasibility studies that are ongoing. We have seen some limited deployment in blue hydrogen, which is capturing the carbon dioxide as you're making the hydrogen. So that's a good sign of things to come, we hope. But overall, the hydrogen market definitely still in development. I think demand in the form of offtake agreements would help a lot, trigger some stronger policies and investment for infrastructure, and then eventually get to industry standards like we have in the oil and gas industry to help lower costs and just kind of even the playing field a little bit more.
What do you think are some of the challenges, like the most critical engineering or technology challenges that companies are facing right now when they're scaling carbon capture or hydrogen infrastructure?
Just like most things in engineering, I would say it depends. Like, don't you love a good engineering answer like that? But it really does depend on what technologies companies are using to adopt carbon capture and hydrogen. There's so many bespoke solutions right now. Like I mentioned before, we don't have a lot of industry standards, so that would really help. Since both are fairly new emerging markets, everyone's still trying to find their way, and what works in one sector and area may not translate to another. We're seeing a lot of pilot projects go on, but then when it comes to scalability, they're running into a lot of high costs. Infrastructure is sometimes a problem and inconsistent standards. There's just some gaps that the industry needs to address, which we believe that they will. Supporting government policy would help a lot. As we've seen, it's difficult to keep things consistent when there's so much transition. It's like every day is a new day.
Yeah, I feel like in sustainability industries right now, it's a challenging time, I would say.
Very challenging, dynamic, we like to say.
So then talking about these new industries and the oil and gas industry, are there any synergies or like transferable technologies between traditional oil and gas and these emerging energy systems?
Absolutely. A lot of the equipment that's being used in oil and gas is now being utilized in hydrogen and carbon capture. The requirements may differ a little bit because of the fluid being transported. We haven't moved hydrogen a lot around, so we're learning some concepts from that, but a lot of the concepts are still the same.
Where do you see the greatest potential for impact over the next 5 to 10 years? Blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, point source carbon capture, direct air capture. What do you think about that?
We're seeing blue hydrogen and point source carbon capture as having a significant impact in the near term. Like right now, we're seeing a lot of blue hydrogen plants come up. Point source carbon capture has been going on for years. So we just expect that to continue to move forward. Part of it's because the scalability is there. People are used to it. So the technology is there. Policy alignment is great. We've got tax credits that are very helpful in the US and Canada. And then, as we discussed earlier, a lot of the existing infrastructure can be used. So that makes things just easier on people. Green hydrogen and direct air capture, they have a little ways to go. They have a lot of great potential, but they also have some economic and technical barriers, scalability, things that we've discussed before. So we may not see the benefits of those as soon as we'd like to.
What is the difference between blue hydrogen and green hydrogen?
So blue hydrogen is when you're making the hydrogen in various different ways and you're just capturing the carbon dioxide used to make it. So you're using like a gas turbine or something like that to make the hydrogen. Green hydrogen is being made from renewable sources like solar power, nuclear power, something like that that's renewable. And so it's not as reliable because a lot of the renewable sources right now are not as 24/7 as our natural gas lines and gas turbines.
Right.
If
Okay,
that makes
makes
sense.
sense. Nope, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for explaining. This episode is sponsored by Informed Water Choices, which provides industry information and research to help utilities make informed decisions about their water infrastructure. PVC water pipes are made from vinyl chloride, a toxic chemical associated with various health and environmental concerns. The Environmental Protection Agency is currently reviewing the environmental and health risks linked to vinyl chloride. To learn how your utility can reduce harm and protect your community, visit informedwaterchoices.com. So, what do you think it will take to move from pilot projects to more large scale deployment in these kind of sectors?
Well, I wish there was just one missing piece. It would make life so much simpler. But again, kind of it depends. There's a lot of combination of things that need to happen. More investment, stronger government incentives, infrastructure is needed, especially in hydrogen, because it's just so small. On the regulatory side, consistency would go a long way to give investors confidence in investing in all those things that I just mentioned. And then on the supply chain side, if we could get more cross border collaboration, that would allow truly global standardized solutions to be available, which, as we know, that helps cut cost.
What about for young people, young engineers, young professionals entering the energy space today? What advice would you give them if they want to be part of this transition?
I would say if you're joining now, you're definitely in the right place. Engineering is always attractive, and it's certainly attractive in these new energy projects as they progress. We are going to need all disciplines. We can see it from the different technology that's being deployed. I am partial to mechanical, but everybody is needed. It's a really great way to work in the energy industry, in a dynamic industry, but also helping to conserve the environment. So you kind of can balance those two.
What is one thing that you wish more people understood about carbon capture or hydrogen technology? What is something that's often misunderstood or overlooked?
If you take a step back and maybe look at the industry as a whole of like emerging energies, as we call it, I wish people would think of it as an energy toolbox. So, not just one sector or another. I heard an analogy at a luncheon a while back, and it really struck a chord with me that if you think about the evolution of energy in from where we are to the cavemen, we started by rubbing sticks together to create heat. We moved to coal and then onto oil and natural gas. LNG is really big. We have nuclear. And now we're adding hydrogen and other renewable sources to our toolbox. Every era, even though we've maybe moved past it or differently, it's given us new tools and skills that we've been able to improve and, use in the next era. And as you can see, the demand for heat and energy are continuing to increase. Data centers, we're plugging in cars, like residentially. And while hydrogen isn't the only answer, it's certainly a cleaner way to help meet the demand.
So, before we wrap things up, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about or any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
It's interesting in my experience with oil and gas for most of the last 20 years of my career, and now evolving into the new energy side of it. I feel like sometimes things can be divisive and people have their blinders on, and it's only one way or the highway. That's why I love the analogy that I gave before. And I really think there's so much technology that's being developed in the new energy side that we can rely on the experience and the lessons learned and the standards that have been developed for oil and gas. So I hope to see that the two industries kind of come together, more partnership, and that way I think we can really move forward a lot faster. The resources where things are available dictate a lot of what we do in energy. So manufacturing may be less expensive in one place, so you can make an electrolyzer a lot cheaper versus natural resources of wind or solar or oil and gas. So it just really depends on where you are and how to make the best of it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Huge thanks to Informed Water Choices for sponsoring this episode. And of course, a big thank you to Jessi Munsey for taking the time to share her expertise with us on carbon capture and hydrogen technologies. If you're listening to the podcast and would like the chance to watch it, head over to our YouTube page to see the full video version. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and we will see you next time.